Arch and Center, did we get anything?
Clerk treasurer
Did we
today.
check with them or?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Generally, they're good about calling. B, A, M.
Hey, what's the question? What's the question?
I can't think of as much because he looks like he's broke.
Plural.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's 6 letters.
I know it gets the building moving.
I'm just not doing it. I don't know what it wound up being.
It would be.
And me.
Oh, God.
You know, the Jetsons got an S on the end of it. The Jetsons have an S on the end of it.
It's out of hand. We just got it right
Hey,
back.
Mike,
That's 7.
clock is 2
Hidden
minutes.
contracts, if any default happens, you take it. Always worm
What do you
some
got?
way out of it.
That's fine.
Call the January 12th Lawrenceburg Redevelopment Commission meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Oh, Connie's not here.
Roll call. All
Go
right.
ahead.
Grant Hughes, here. President Mike Lawrence.
Here.
Here. Let's see. Vice President Todd Rogers.
Here.
Secretary Tony Abbott.
Here.
Board Member Donnie Bryant.
Here.
Board Member Aaron Cook. Yes. School Board Member Patrick Meyer. City Attorney Leslie Voto.
Here.
Board had a chance to review the minutes of the previous meeting.
There's 2 different ones too, Mike, for December 8th and January 2nd.
To December the 8th first. We have a motion to approve. So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And January 1st, or January 2nd.
Motion to approve.
First, we have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Announcements. The next regular meeting will be February the 9th at 5 o'clock. Financial report. $1,377,208.74. On the new business, Paul Seymour, interested in property on.
Name's Paul Seymour Jr. We just closed Friday on a house on Martin Luther King. And I have really no more lots left. So what I was wanting to do is to come before the board. The lot I'm interested in right now would be Green's old property. It's on Euphemia Street on the corner of the alley, right by George Street. The house that I'd like to do would be similar to Corey Zentz on the corner of Margaret and Martin Luther King, with the only exception I would make it more of an L-shaped house and then have an entrance coming in from the alley. I would have the front of the house on Euphemia and then take the garage out back and have the entrance to the alley off the garage. I know that this property has went through all the proper advertisement, and I just trying to create some work for the guys in the area, and have freed up by closing a home. And I probably should have came in a little bit earlier, but because of the weather there a month ago and different things, I hesitated a little bit, and I'm just thinking that now would be the good time to come in and get another one going. See what y'all thought, if there's any questions.
Any questions on the board?
What's the address?
Huh?
What is the address?
All right, I'm not sure of the address.
That's what we go by, but
I think it
probably,
would be the only Euphemia street address we have.
That's all we've had.
Yeah.
you don't know the number?
Well, number, we advertised at the same time we were advertising St. Clair.
Yeah, I'm positive it's went through everything. The only reason why I never bid on it at that point was because I was just trying to see if there's any other people interested.
So that's on the corner of Margaret and what?
It's on the corner of Euphemia
In Margaret?
and the alley. It's right next to Mr. Ganaway.
Oh,
Alley
that's that one that was
between
collapsed.
Doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you guys can get me,
We'll get you the address.
okay, thanks.
Have you submitted
Because that's
all
how
the-
we file it in our files, is by address, so I don't,
I mean, I could make you an offer tonight. Guys, that I don't mean to insult or anything, but with the cost going up, my offer on that piece of property is I promise I'll put you somebody to live in there, and I'm gonna offer $10 for the property. In the past, on the Martin Luther King streets, I've gave basically, I think on 2 occasions, I gave $2,500 for lots. I'm not gonna do that anymore. The tap fees went up. Tap fees, I believe, went up right at $500. I've had different costs now that I incur with architects and things that the banks are charging me to do on these loans, and it's getting hard enough to do them. I just don't want to pay anything for the lots. That's my feeling on it.
Are we sure we're at the point where we can deal with somebody at arm's length with this?
no, I'm not without the address. Sorry, it wasn't, I mean, I didn't know even to look it up.
Verify that address. and-
Oh, I don't have no problem. If
Why
That's,
don't we just move ahead with it, do it, and if it hasn't, then bring it up the next meeting. Because I
Let her
think they
verify.
both said that it's been,
I remember it being advertised, I just can't remember when.
yeah, I'm sure she's gonna find out it's all been advertised and everything. I should have brought the address in, but, I just wanted to make that offer and see. I didn't know how soon a closing could be done, or what the time frame on that would be, Leslie, if you could do it.
It would probably, I mean, just a matter of getting a purchase contract together if they
Okay.
approve it.
All right.
And then, as far as closing goes, obviously, it wouldn't be like we'd have to wait for any kind of financing on the $10, right? I mean, I don't think,
Yeah.
I think you could probably come up with that, right? So, but no, I mean, so we could do a closing pretty quickly, I'd say.
What would the board like to do?
Well, I think it'd be an improvement to that blighted area over there, we coming right on around with it, got it looking pretty good.
Puts it back in the tax rate.
Definitely, I'd say move to,
second,
And with that motion, that's subject to.
yes.
It's all been, yeah, it's at the RFP stage.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Here's one other question. Just want to throw it in you guys' train of thought. A couple meetings ago, we talked about St. Clair Street. And now, if I can get started on Euphemia and get that thing going, come spring, I might pick up the pace a little bit, but I believe it was talked about, the fellow that owned the house next to your 2 lots, and I had asked you about whether you would want to build 4 houses on 4 lots, or 3 on, if you had a chance to buy that. Has anybody pursued or talked to the fella, or have you guys thought about that, getting him back? Because I believe the next time I come in, I'll probably ask for St. Clair, and I wouldn't want to change the structure of the building there. if I build one house on those 2 lots, it's gonna be hard for you guys to put 3 houses on 4 lots instead of 4. So, something to think about. I don't know if you guys remember talking about that or not.
I remember talking about, I thought we was saying 3 houses on them.
But right now, you only have 2 of the lots, and I don't know whether it's been considered to talk to that fellow again, or if you did decide to put that back out for appraisals.
Grant, you do any talking to him?
At the time, it was decided that we needed to get this loan program up and running for 3 houses, and then we would look at purchasing properties.
I guess my only reasoning is if you want to push for getting houses going, we need to have property, and there's really, if you sit back and think about it, there's not, I don't know, Grant, is there there's not a tremendous amount in town.
Nothing that we could increase the lot size on.
Okay.
You know the address?
Of that, no, I don't. Sure. About that, that's all I had.
Move on to Tim Jensen, quotes for event center, hotel, design and construction changes. Recommendations.
Thank you, Your Honor. So tonight, we have a couple things in front of you. The quotes for the Event Center Hotel, as you guys know, as we've been wrapping this thing up, there's always these little things that keep trickling through. They're now mainly coming through either Hilton requirements or Hollywood requirements, but it is all their money at this point. That's what's being spent, is just adding to their loan. I think you're going to hear a little bit more from Ms. Votal here in a few minutes about the scheduled closing for tomorrow, when that building is supposed to transfer hands. I know she had some meetings about that today, so I think she'll inform you what's going on there. So there was a few small things that we've been getting quotes for through the city staff to complete the project, and the little things. They've all been coming into the clerk treasurer's office, and due to the schedule, city staff has reviewed them. They've been open with the deputy clerk treasurer present, and then move forward, and you'll see in your invoice list in the back, there's a few of those minor things. And if you want to know more about them, David from my office is here. He's been the one that's been handling that with Mr. Todd and Mr. Clark, just going through that process, and with the clerk treasurer's office. So if there's any questions about that, David would be happy to answer those tonight. And I know Connie has copies of all of those as well, right? So they're all fairly minor things that we've gone through, and in every case, the low bid was the one that was selected, or the low quote. They do meet the normal purchasing guidelines. The design and construction changes, E&O recommendation, you have that lengthy letter in your packet this evening. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it. So the project team, that being primarily now that Messer's out of the picture, myself and David and Mr. Todd, and I know Mr. Hughes has been on a couple of things, and Ms. Votal has reviewed this letter. Basically what we did was, if you remember right, from a couple of months ago or a month ago, Structure Point, we had gone back to Structure Point with a response, and Structure Point had come back and said, hey, our insurance company really needs a response from you guys to really start the conversation on where we're going to land. You guys approved, this board approved what Structure Point had offered on those 26 or 28 items originally, but there was still, I think, 61, according to the letter, that were still outstanding that had no offer from Structure Point on, because they didn't feel like there was a premium associated with it. So 59, okay, so David and I went back through and went through each one of those again to come up with our suggestion of what that is. That was then presented to Mario and Ms. Votal, I think it was last week, and they had some corrections and changes in language and whatnot, but each one of those there is explained, each one of the 59 items is explained as to what it is. In some cases, we were able to identify what we believe to be a premium cost, and that's associated with it, and I think the letter explains all those things. So tonight, if you're okay with it, what we'd be looking to do is have you guys, if you're willing to approve that and recommend that then we respond, or the project team responds to Structure Point with those numbers as recorded in that letter. If you guys want to ask questions, we're here to answer those tonight, or if you want to schedule another time to talk about those questions, that's fine too, as Structure Point is in the audience. He can answer some questions about those as well. So
What is the difference between what you thought the overcost was and what you guys come up with?
So if you look at the last page of the, you have that in front of you? The last page, there's a spreadsheet. There should be some spreadsheet attachments on the very back of this that are referenced in the, so that very, very last page of your packet has a spreadsheet. So at the bottom, the total amount of all the change orders that were associated to a potential error or omission from the design team drawings was $545,491.01. If you remember, the far right column there is what Structure Point has offered on, like we said, 28 of them, $80,610.42. And then what this letter is looking at is an additional, if you can see it there, Donnie, $283,179.75. So the balance that the city would then have to pay out, which has already been paid, but that the city's responsibility would be with that $181,700,000.
And just to give you an idea, I mean, when we had first talked to CES, I believe they told us we could expect, what was the number?
They gave a general range. They said in their experience with E&O claims like this, you could expect to see anywhere from 25 to 45%, I think was the range that they gave in the meeting here on E&O claims. But it depends on what the E&O claims are and all the different things that are associated with them.
Well, and so we didn't want to go down that far on a first letter back to them, so I suggested the 75%. I mean, that's not a set number. That's something you guys can change if you want to. That's what they base these spreadsheets on, though, was the 75%.
Any
So-
questions from anybody?
Yeah, so the process would be, if you guys approve this to move forward tonight, with or without changes, we would make whatever those changes are. I believe that your city team would then take this recommendation and convert it probably into official correspondence from the city, and then get that to Structure Point and their team by the end of the week, as soon as possible, and so they can start that process again with the insurance company. But the insurance company, if you remember, I gave this update a month ago, refused to come with the first offer, so to speak. They wanted to see numbers from the city as to what we were asking for, so.
What would the board like to do?
I thought we gave them a number to start with, what we felt was,
Which was 100%.
yeah.
Well, you know, so we can go back with 100%, but that wouldn't be any different than the last letter we sent them.
Right, and I'm not sure they would even respond to it, quite frankly. I can't speak for them, and I don't even think Rob can speak for what the insurance company's gonna do with it, so. Yes, yeah, so what David just said is the number that we came up with here is what we're recommending that we go forward with Leslie and Mario's approval as well, to pursue and at least start the conversation with them. And
I'd recommend to go with this number, but I would recommend to stay pretty firm.
Yeah.
What was the last part?
Stay pretty firm.
Firm.
I can't make a motion.
I'll make that motion. Go with the firm offer.
Have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
First and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
that's all I have, thank you.
Because one of the things too, let me just clarify, one of the things too is, they've also, and I don't think this is a secret, that whatever their insurance coverage doesn't cover, they may be able to make up the difference.
That's clearly up to Structure Point and their principals, as to what they feel they're responsible for. I can't speak for them.
Well, did they get our letter of thinking about, our dealings with them in the future?
That's, again, not my letter to write. That'd be a letter from the city to write. So I don't know if that's been issued or not. So,
Not from staff, that would be a board letter.
so,
There it goes.
That's, that it?
Thanks.
Move on to Leslie Bocall, event center.
Last week and today, pretty much all day, was working on the documents for the closing on the event center. Met with Mr. Saunders and Mr. Noe from Hollywood today to go over the documents, make sure there weren't any questions or things that can come up when we get to the closing tomorrow. They all seem, there is one question we're going back and forth, and actually our underwriters asked us for, which I'm probably going to do when I get done with the meeting tonight, but just want to let the board know we are still set for 1 o'clock tomorrow, and already confirmed everyone's attendance, Mr. Rogers for the board, and Mr. Saunders for Indiana Gaming Company, LLC. So, I guess if, does the board have any questions? Okay.
Property update.
Yeah, we do have, today, there was the Park Place subdivision, which is the 4 lots located in Arch and Center Streets. Request for proposals was put in the paper 2 times during, the month of, well, since 12/4, since the last meeting. And I didn't check with the clerk's office, but Mr. Hughes said he was not notified of anything that came in for the request for proposals. So, I'm not sure what you want to do with that, but the other thing, the staff, we had talked about before, if we don't get any interest of developing this as a subdivision, we could possibly, we did have them appraised by lot as well. Not, there's a price for the subdivision, and then there's a price for each lot. So, that's definitely a way we could go on this too. But that's all I have on.
But right now, you're not sure if anything come in or not, either one of you?
They're good about
We should
notifying us, and,
Table it?
yeah, we didn't get any notice from them today. More likely, there wasn't anything that came in.
Can you come back next meeting and just
Confirm
verify
that?
that?
Okay.
Do that. The next one I have is 519 Martin Luther King Drive.
So, and also at the next meeting, can we have this on the agenda so we can discuss what we want to do?
Yes.
On 519 Martin Luther King Drive. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Hold on just a moment, and I can tell you the average. The one did come in for, I believe it was $17,000 and $17,500. Mr. Thomas,
One more time.
his was $17,500. This is just the empty lot without the house. The house was demolished. .519 Martin Luther King Drive. And like I said, hold on just a second, I know Mr. Nering. Sure it was 17, but I want to double check it before I tell you guys that. His price on it was $17,000. So the average of the two would be $17,250. I would just ask for the okay to do the original notice and offer at that price.
Motion
So moved.
first, we have a second. First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Do the notice and offer for the next meeting. Is that 2/9, right? That's the meeting.
On that advertisement, we got any restrictions or?
This is the big notice and offer, so, the use, I mean, we could just say, I normally get with, to see where the zoning
On the
is.
first one, we normally just offer it. If they want to pay market value, the only thing we normally put in is they have to meet planning and zoning and building.
But if you, it would make sense that we put it in as a residential development, correct?
It has to be because of the.
Okay.
Mike Clark, proposed redevelopment project area map and downtown entertainment district map.
Okay, thank you. You've got two different maps in your packet. This all came about from our study that we had done for the downtown area. One of the items highly recommended was to create a downtown entertainment. To do so, that district can
Can you pull
only,
your mic around?
that district can only exist within another district, one of about 3 different things. So this first one, I've got it labeled as a redevelopment project area. It could be one of about 3 different titles. It could be a economic development area or a riverfront redevelopment area. We'll just see what fits the statute best, but you can see the black bold line. It basically covers everything inside of the levee, from the center of the levee, and then on the south side, it goes to the corporate boundary or the state line out in the water. This district has to be created first. What I'm asking for tonight is, if no one has a problem, to go ahead and I need some authorization or direction to go ahead and proceed with this. If you tell me, yes, this is good, then tomorrow I'll start working on getting a written legal description for this district, and also a recordable map. Leslie will also start working on a resolution to bring back to you at the next meeting, because this would have to be done with a resolution by this board and then forwarded on to Common Council to approve the map and the district by ordinance. So this is the first half of what I'm working on right now.
Just a clarification too, we did talk with, Lisa Lee with Ice Miller, because she was the one that helped us do our original TIF district. And the TIF district is encompassed in this. And we were afraid that there may be some implications, some negative consequences on the TIF district. And she said actually the opposite is true. This could only enhance the TIF district. So, that really was the only question I had. And it's unfortunate that the TIF district, because the TIF district actually was a Lawrenceburg Downtown Entertainment District and TIF district. The first one we established back in 11 to build the event center.
Yes.
However, those lines do not coincide with the proposed district, which is the second page, the Lawrenceburg Downtown Entertainment District. The Lawrenceburg Downtown Entertainment District is something that the more specific one is the one that will have to go in front of council and be passed by ordinance.
Well, on that, I'd so move, did he move forward on the?
Wait, Chairman? One question. What about the historical downtown district? Anyone know boundaries?
Absolutely.
You do?
Yes.
Is it all inside, is it exactly like this?
No,
inside the
no,
building?
no.
Does it
no.
go all the way up Walnut Street?
Goes up Walnut Street, but it only goes out so far. I've got those maps that,
Did I get one?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
So that would also encompass, this redevelopment area would also encompass the historic district.
Correct.
Done.
Yeah, I'd so move that, let Mike go forward with this, project area.
A motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, the second part is the proposed downtown entertainment district. This map was generated from our downtown committee, and this is what they have presented to us, and we've worked with them. This would be within the area of the first map, so we're gonna meet Indiana statutes there. So I would ask the same thing of this board, to authorize me to start working on a recordable map and a written legal description for it, and to allow Leslie to start on the resolution for this also.
Actually, there wouldn't be a resolution, but you can have them do a positive or negative recommendation to the council.
To forward to the council, okay.
Any questions from the board?
Make a motion for a positive recommendation to council.
Motion on the floor, and we have a second.
Second.
Have a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, well, thank you, and I will have a resolution and a recordable map at the next meeting.
We'll move on to Mike Clark, City of Aurora sanitary sewer easement.
Okay, you also have, I think there's 4 easements listed in there, and a map showing in green where Aurora proposes to place their sanitary sewer around the Ratliff Landing, or commonly known as the boat docks. This has already gone through city council, and as you can see where it's labeled, the western portion of this goes through redevelopment lands. And there's no problem with the easement. I think, Leslie, I think they've requested that we grant this easement to them, hopefully without any compensation, so they wouldn't have to purchase it.
Yeah, and I believe, I didn't bring that piece of paper with me, but I believe that was $1,900 that was attributable.
It's somewhere close to 2,000. I know that is what the appraisals came out at. I know we don't normally pay for easements if we don't have to on the city or the Lawrenceburg municipal utilities. I have no problem. We've plotted it, we've checked it to make sure that it will not interfere with our facility. They've actually located it so it goes around any obstacles. I have no problem with this at all, but this is something that you guys will have to make the final call on.
Well, if we give it to them at no cost, that's going around where that bait shop is down there, isn't it, right behind it?
Yeah, and they work completely around that.
Can't we get a couple taps along there, some stub ups or something, Mario? You know,
This
for future
This
development.
this is a force main. You can't tap into this.
Do that.
No.
You'd be blowing the toilets out of the water.
Shoot them out to the star in the creek. Well,
Sorry, or that's.
thinking anyway.
Yeah, this is basically a forced discharge line from the city of Aurora to South Dearborn
That's a good idea,
treatment
though.
plant.
But, yeah.
We don't want what they're pumping, trust me.
I was thinking of future development down there for
Any other questions? Would like to do?
Like I said, they're just asking, we checked it out, made sure we did the maps, and, they're just asking that we waive any type of, payment for the easement that the redevelopment owns, the portion that the redevelopment owns. Because like Mr. Brunner said at the council meeting, we loaned them the money, and they'd be paying it back with our money, pretty much, right?
Actually, they got a grant.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so they'd be paying us back with a grant, the $4 million grant. So it doesn't really make sense that we require payment.
Everybody tapping on their plant, we're gonna be having that on it for long. It was a,
Want to make a motion?
Motion to accept Mike Clark's recommendations
At no cost.
with no cost.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Second. First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to old business, grant used housing.
Yes, gentlemen, in your package is the document from United Community Bank and also the worksheet for agreement. We've gotten a reply back from the bank. We've got the bullet points settled out. This is, this document, if you all agree, is ready to go to legal to put the finishing touches on it. This would be the housing loan program, and it is a model for only 3 homes. It requires 20% down by the developer, and we're financing the 80%. There's trip points in it as far as when the second house starts. This has been what we've been working on since September, going back and forth. We've got United Communities input on it on November 18th. This will be a loan program that is managed by the banks, by UCB, and pretty much from all the discussion, I think we've got everything included. I know that Mr. Seymour has reviewed it, he's comfortable with it, so we're ready to go to legal.
The only caveat I would tell you all is that the mayor does want it to be a pilot program. He wants to see how this works before obviously, that's totally up to you guys, but as far as the putting it as a loan program might be a little misleading, just because, basically, we just want to make sure, we want to be in the same, we don't want to be in the loan business either, I don't think, so. But, so, I would definitely entitle it as a pilot loan project, something along those lines.
bank do it instead of a lawyer.
How is that on the loan rate or the interest rate? How much would come to redevelopment? If it was a 12, if it went over a full 12 months?
That's something that, for you all to determine on what the loan rate is. 3.5 is what their rate is with handling it. So if you wanted to pick up a 0.5%, you'd be at 4 points.
So 3 1/4 is what they want.
Yes, 3 1/4, excuse me. Gonna have my glasses on.
What is cost that you're in the construction? What's the going rate?
They don't get construction. Very rare.
Oh,
Guys, I got everything I got in the world tied up over just to do what I'm doing.
oh, you're right though, so the interest amount will actually be paid to UCB for a loan administration fee.
3.25.
So we won't be making anything off of it. It would be,
Unless
The only
we
thing,
add to
yep,
it.
unless we add to it.
unless you add to it, and don't forget that the CD you're putting up to secure it, you're making that portion on that CD. Half.
Less than a 0.5%.
Yeah.
All we can hope for is taxes off of it after they're built and sold.
it goes.
Yeah, we need to, because it's gonna have some stuff we gotta work out in it, and that's why, and it's strictly driven by a project, just centered on the housing project. 3 homes, and then we reevaluate.
What would the board like to do?
Mr. Clark has something to say.
I've just got a question, and maybe for Grant or else the board, but, we've had this buy down in the past where, they get $10,000 buy down if they build new home in the down.
On the second sheet.
Oh, was it? I breezed through it and didn't notice it. I know it was discussed to take it to Tim.
It'll be named at a later date through an organization. We'll provide a 10% of housing unit cost to benefit buyer at closing with a $15,000 max.
Oh. Okay, and now I got one question or comment to that. Do you want to put a max on the 10%? And the only reason I'm asking that question, we are trying to raise the bar to get some nicer homes downtown. So if you max it out, you may put a ceiling on what dollar amount home gets built. If it's just a flat rate 10, maybe we'll get, $185,000, $200,000 home eventually being built in town.
Good thoughts. I don't see it, but
Well, I mean, but there again, if you don't, you're not gonna exceed the 15 anyway, but it might be an incentive for,
this is a test, so we can
Okay.
always, look at that at a later date. Let's see how
And this,
first 3 units go.
okay.
these are built on 140.
Like any other thing you try, Mike, if you don't go after it at first, you ain't gonna get it later. So if you're wanting to do a test, and if you're wanting to try to get better houses, I'd suggest that you try to go that other route and then back it off if you don't have any luck.
But with going that, I just don't want the developer to get in, if it's a sold unit up front, I don't have a problem with it. But the
Right.
last thing I want to do is see a developer go in there and say, well, I'm going to try to build a $200,000 house, and then it's sitting over there costing the developer and sitting there empty for, years or something.
But
I
that's-
don't want to see that.
But that's a developer's problem.
When we were first doing this program, Paul, we were trying to make it so we had young couples coming in buying their first homes. That's what this was all about, get the young people moving back into Lawrenceburg downtown.
That's exactly right.
They're not gonna come in and try and buy a $200,000 home. I think the way, we're giving away the land pretty cheap, we're giving them $15,000, we're financing it. I think we're doing enough.
I mean, I'm not saying, and I'll be honest with you, and I've answered Mike this, but I'm not gonna build a $180,000 house.
Well, and that's,
But what my point is, let's say somebody wants to live on Arch Center and they really want to be there. They don't have to have me build it either. They could come before you guys and say, hey, this is what I'd like to do. And they might have the money. Is that the kind of person that you want to turn down?
I wouldn't say
Or
we
not
would
make it
turn 'em-
available
Wouldn't
to
say we
them?
wouldn't turn them down. Would they turn down 15,000 to help them?
Yeah.
see, my problem is, Paul, like you said, it'd be the developer's problem, but to me, it might not be, because that developer builds that house, he winds up going belly up, it's his board still responsible to the bank for that money.
Yeah, they're holding it.
So
That's true. That's very true.
That's my problem. Would
Oh,
you like to see a $200,000 house built down here? Sure, I would love it.
But I don't think that this pilot the program would
got
be
something
some, I don't know. I understand what he's saying.
It's all risk.
But that's why we looked at going from 10 to 15 though.
Exactly, and I mean, we're doing something different right now. We're in between old ones. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I wasn't a little bit worried about it. That's what all this conversation between me and Grant's been. So, it's for me, it's a whole new game now. So, but you are right, and I just sold a house to a 30-year-old girl with a kid, and she works at Hollywood, and young person, which is what most of them's been. So, all right.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve the loan structure with the United Community Bank, and is it Seymour Construction?
Yeah, this.
For these three starter
It's
houses?
not for any.
Okay. All right, I'd like to recommend we go ahead with the loan structure with the UCB on these three houses. It's a,
And revisit after the first.
yes, after the test. I wanted to say that, but
This is only a test.
didn't get it out.
Have a
only a
motion on the
test.
floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Is this, it says for discussion only, can we show this to anyone? Now that,
It should be, it's public record.
okay.
We've got more work to do than just this document.
Okay,
here.
well, it's something to give to people.
Right.
Is that it?
One item that's not on the agenda, and I apologize, but Councilperson Pope brought up an issue about the cracking floors down at the event center. I don't know if you want to handle it now or audience comments, but we do have the people here to answer.
Take care of that at audience comments.
Okay, thank you.
We do have one more thing under old business regards to Erdis and the event center. We'd like to continue their service at least week by week or as needed till we close out the issues.
And, well, like, one of the things, just want to let you all know, we're gonna make David really do it, because all along, part of what we have to transfer as well, obviously, is not just the real estate, but also the personal property. There's a bill of sale that was supposed to have the list of every single item, you know, that Hollywood or Indiana Gaming Company did not procure themselves. The list compared, and we got it worked out, so where we're basically putting the list that they did procure themselves and saying everything else. And we gave until the end of February to come up with an inventory, basically, list. But, it's, you know, I think that is something that our staff can do, or, you know, we can get over there and do.
Handled in-house.
Right, can be handled
Physical
in-house.
inventory.
But David's been very instrumental in all these last-minute things. He was able to get a spreadsheet to me today so that, you know, that can be attached to the bill of sale tomorrow. And he has given me the project numbers, the budget, everything. We'll have final numbers for everybody tomorrow. So I would commend both Tim and David on a great job, because without them being able to use their resources and, you know, get us what we need to get, this wouldn't have been closing tomorrow, so.
My only issue with that is I hope that there's a cap put on it, a lot less than the cap that's been on the original agreement. Because if not, you're gonna wind up spending as much or more by the time it's said and done than to just pay for these changes ourselves. So that's my only recommendation to the board.
In your honor, I think you're wise in saying that. Again, we'll be able to pick and choose the select service, I believe, for the needs of finishing this out.
There, what's the board want to do? That die for lack of motion?
I thought we talked about it once before.
Yeah, Your Honor, just
Put a stop on it.
Actually,
I can't talk about it.
you want to accept a motion?
Wasn't my request.
That's what-
It was your
well,
staff's request, so.
Under public comments, you'll be more than welcome. You have
Yeah.
some old business? with-
I'm sorry, I meant to bring it up over the event center. In the meantime, we did have a release of all claims. I did get a copy of that to you on Triton, so that's great. was the last extended general condition we were able to resolve. And Mr. Samargandhi, I know you remember him, I wasn't here at that meeting, but you all were, and we did do the settlement, and this was just a release of all claims. I did want you to, I believe before you had already given Mr. Rogers the okay to sign everything when it was done. It just didn't happen right away, so just wanted to, that's really just for you guys' information. Already approved that. The second one is from the TNT Firehouse litigation. At the closing, at the time of the closing, we had already had our meeting on the 12th of December, and there was a release of the option to purchase that needed to be done in order, well, basically, if we had that option to purchase out there, it really wouldn't have been settled. We'd still have that option to purchase, and so the title company and the underwriter was requiring this information. I did call everybody and tell them that we needed to do this, and Mr. Rogers and Mr. Bryant did sign it. Basically, just need a ratification of the release of the option to purchase tonight. I need a motion to ratify.
I make the motion to ratify.
Have a motion on the floor, do we have a second? First and a second, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Looking for approval of claims once properly certified.
So moved.
A motion on the floor, do we have a second?
Second.
First and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now, we'll move on to comments from the audience. Jane, because Grant brought something up.
I attended a meeting over at the event center a couple weeks ago, and went to the upper level, walked through the restaurant, and as I continued to walk to the restaurant, I got to the concrete, and I noticed a crack, and a crack in the concrete went from wall to wall, and I walked another 3 foot, and there was another crack. I felt like I was playing, don't step on a crack, you'll break your mother's back. But they were cracks in the concrete, and some of them, about every 3 foot, wall to wall. Some of them were thin, and some of them could be anywhere from a 1/2 of an inch to 3/4 of an inch thick.
Huh? That big?
Mario, you agree with me?
Well, in the photos, you can see pretty well the typical cracks. Some of them are hairline type fractures. I think probably on the 3rd page back, counting the cover sheet, is probably the largest opening. I think that's what she's referring to.
Well, I brought these up to, I think you, Tim, wasn't it, here a few weeks back, and asked you about all them cracks, because I eat up there, and I noticed all that, and I couldn't believe it. And you said it was their design, the way they wanted it to look?
The look was,
I'd like to make a few more comments before they comment. It disturbed me, and I didn't say anything to anybody, but I thought, who would sign off on a building that costs that much and pour concrete, and the concrete end up cracking like that? And I talked to some people that knew a little bit about concrete, and I didn't know whether to question it or not, and I decided to call Mario. Mario was there, and this gentleman, I can't remember, was there at the event center at the time I made the phone call. And if I would have had somebody pour me a slab of concrete and it ended up cracking like that, I wouldn't have signed off on it. I would have made sure that it was a solid piece of concrete. And I was told by concrete people and Mr. Todd and David that they intended for it to crack. It didn't matter if it cracked. I said, what? it don't matter if it cracks, or, you know, and they said the reason why it did crack is because it didn't have enough control joints in it, and Mario took me down below and said it didn't have enough support columns. So I said, is it going to collapse? And Mario said, no, it's not going to collapse. But why would anybody, and how many, did you say that was 13 inches thick?
It's about 12 inches thick.
About 12 inches thick of concrete. And the intentions was, he told me, that they didn't care if the concrete cracked or not, and they were saving money by not putting in the extra joints that were needed. Columns or whatever, because they were going to put tile floor covering on top of it anyway. Well, it was brought to my attention later that no matter what you put on top of that concrete, except for carpet, the tile will crack too.
It has a chance on cracking, correct?
And then we'll be in the same mess where we'll have to replace the tile because the concrete below is cracked. And you even told me that those cracks could go as wide as 1.5 inches.
No, that was the deflection. The slab could actually dip down that far. Could settle that way.
And you said, I said, well, who signed off on that? And you said the architects and the engineers okayed it. I said, was there anybody that came in, code enforcement person, you know, because I explained to you when I had my pole barn built, I had my concrete poured, I had the city come in and inspect, I had the county come in and inspect, and they had to sign off on my building and my concrete. So did we actually have a city inspector, a county inspector, or anybody come in and sign off on that concrete pour?
Well, I think I mentioned to you, we actually brought it to the engineer and the architect's attention as soon, well, probably within the first month of placement. And we do have part of the design team here tonight, the architect. You want to ask him some questions?
I don't want to ask, well, there's really no questions. I mean, what's done's done. But why, I guess my main question is, why didn't they pour it and do what was necessary to keep it from cracking? And you didn't realize at the time that the restaurant wanted a stained concrete floor, which I told you that's the new. A lot of people are doing that in their buildings. They're pouring concrete instead of putting anything on top of it. They're staining it or leaving it natural. I guess my main question goes back to, again, why would you pour 12 inches worth of concrete that you didn't care was going to crack anyway, and it was okay?
And I think we'll let Rob answer that question if allowed.
How often is there a joint in it?
There's no joints.
None?
Not in this slab section, elevated slab.
I'd like to hear somebody address that.
All right, so part of our role, as you guys know, is to be your eyes and ears in the field, and as Mario stated correctly, as soon as we noticed the cracks form, probably 4 to 6 weeks after the original pour, it's our job to help notify the design team of those issues, structural engineer, architect, and those people. So the way this thing goes down really is that we make notification, they come out and do a field inspection, and in often cases, they've already done a field inspection, maybe during a pour or otherwise. We were told at the time, and at the time they were hairline cracks, and they still, for the most part, are hairline cracks. I'm not aware of anything to this size that you said, Jane, and I'd be happy to go out there with you. None of them have opened up and create a structural issue. We were told, I asked about control joints at the time, because most, as you know, anything poured on grade definitely has control joints. The way this elevated slab was designed, and I'll let Rob talk to you about his design or his team's design as far as what it was designed for. There are no control joints in an elevated slab because all it does is weaken the slab to a great extent. And so that's all covered with rebar and other reinforcing techniques within the slab itself. I am a licensed professional engineer, and I know quite a bit about concrete, and I'll tell you that the one thing that is certain about concrete is that it cracks. No matter,
Cracks and joints.
right, and that's why you don't see it in your, that's why you don't see it in your slab in your garage or your driveway, because they put it in the control joints, and it's cracked in there. If you got down and dug the dirt out of those, you're gonna find that concrete is cracked. And that's why we put it in control joints, put control joints in when it's a slab on grade situation, because oftentimes you'll find that ground freezes or whatever the case is. And so the concrete's it's not gonna move like everything else around it moves, and it will crack, no matter what. And so even in the wall, the flood wall that we have shrinkage cracks. And just because as concrete dries over time, it does separate itself a little bit and becomes a little brittle. And so with Paul and EB and everybody else, we've identified the shrinkage cracks that are in the wall, because we know the Corps is going to find those. At least they want them tracked to monitor them. Those have not opened up at all because they're shrinkage cracks. As Ms. Pope correctly stated, this area was intended to have tile on it. I can let Rob go into more detail on the products that are available now to cover cracks like this for tile, so that it doesn't translate through the tile. If we had thought this was going to be an issue, we wouldn't have tiled the rest of the lobby. We wouldn't let it go that far. But we do, based upon the coverings that are out there, and I see Paul shaking his head, there are products that are made to bridge areas like this so that you don't have the deflection continue up through the slab. Rob, I'll let you kind of talk about your elevated slab a little bit. I think that slab is a little bit thicker than 12 inches. I know the fourth floor slab is a 24-inch slab. I believe this one's like a 16 or 18-inch slab, Rob. So if you want to address it.
Thank you for having me tonight. As Tim mentioned, throughout the process, if there were items or issues that came up, we would be notified. We performed site visits, reviewed the information with the project team, and make recommendations or respond back. And in this case, when we came down and reviewed the cracks, it is an elevated slab. It's a thick slab. We do expect cracking to occur. We make recommendations to monitor the cracking, and if it was to open up substantially to a 3/4 of an inch to an inch, then yeah, we would have concerns as well, and we've not seen any of these cracks do that. Most of them are hairline, and some of them may have been damaged in when the contractor may have been trying to repair some of those cracks. Sometimes it opens it up, makes them wider, and then the staining of the concrete certainly brings more attention to the cracking, whereas it may not be as noticeable. So it is our experience that these slabs do crack. If this was a slab on grade, we would have control joints to control that cracking. Since this is an elevated slab, none of the cracks that have occurred are of structural concern. Certainly they have an aesthetic concern, and then if the cracks were to continue to widen, then we would make recommendations for repair. But at this time, we have no concern, and did have no concern at that time.
So if it's elevated, I won't go anywhere and see joints anywhere else if I go look at them?
No, as Tim alluded to, because we have so much reinforcing in that slab, if you start cutting joints into that, there's a potential to weaken the slab and corrode and or damage the reinforcing, which is the point of having that elevated slab, is to give it the most strength. So we would not put control joints in elevated slabs. So, and the design was always to have a floor covering, whether it be carpet or tile. So the fact that that was exposed maybe did not garner the aesthetic that anybody was looking for, and we certainly understand that, would make recommendations to do flooring. There's subfloor treatment that can be done with floating of surfaces or isolation to make sure that those cracking doesn't transpose to the tile. So there's multiple ways that we can address that so it doesn't affect any flooring that would be put over the top of that slab. So
just to walk in a $57.8 million facility and the floor's cracked all over like that, this doesn't look very good.
So yeah, and frankly, we did bring up concerns at the time about that, if people weren't expecting to see that. I know it's a little trendy now to have the exposed concretes and show aging. Obviously, this isn't an aged facility, it's a new facility, so that was the reason why we intended to have it with some sort of floor covering, but the aesthetic of the restaurant was trying to go for something that was a little more modern, and they thought the cracking may be a good aesthetic. You know, that's subjective, so I can't really speak to that, but understand the concerns that would be brought about the aesthetics, but there are no structural issues with the cracking.
Can you explain the deflection? She was talking about the inch to inch and a half, as far as the deflection.
Sure. So when these elevated slabs are done, there's formwork that's set, and they pour concrete, and it's tested for flatness, but as those forms are removed, the concrete will tend to settle in certain areas, so you will get deflection. So in between the spans, the slab may deflect, and then when they're pouring it, they may have areas that kind of bow up and down, so there's a tolerance that's built into the concrete that if it would dip below that point, then we would have concerns, and there would be steps that the contractor would have to take to repair that area, but it was all the deflection that was taking place was within the tolerance of the concrete specifications. So we're happy to provide any additional information. If there's third parties that want to review that information, we're happy to share it with the shop drawing submittals and our specifications. Those are all available for review if there's additional concern that wants to be explored.
Is the casino, are they okay with it? Have they?
What's in the
I think
hotel
it's a
part?
mixed review from that side.
Doubletree, they're the ones. that's
So,
in there.
if you remember, this section is in the restaurant portion that Mrs. Pope has brought tonight, and it's something that's been on our radar for a long time. Again, this part was originally studied to be tile in the original project drawings. When we went back and value engineered out so that Hollywood could, so we could move forward with the project, this space was to be white boxed, and they were going to finish it at a later date. If you remember, they actually paid for this renovation of the completion of the restaurant out of the grant funds that were afforded by the city, out of the $3.5 million grant, the fit out, right. So they knew going into it that the floor was cracked. They could see it. They did some test areas on the staining. They thought it was going to be okay. Most of them were okay with it originally until Hilton walked through, and Hilton said, nah, this doesn't look like we want it to look. And so now they are looking at their options. I know Rob and his team and David are working on a proposal request right now to either put tile in there or put carpet in there. And I know it's Hollywood's preference to put tile down on the floor, just like we did, not the same tile, but a similar pattern to maybe what was out in the lobby area. So the fix for the aesthetic is underway. What I wanted you guys to hear tonight is that none of Mario or myself or any of the project team or Messer believes that it's a structural issue at all. We do not believe that there's any structural issue or any need for concern or failure other than the aesthetic issue, which, again, we weren't happy from the time they stained it because it just kind of popped out right away. When they stained it, it was obvious and you could see it. And then Hilton walks through and says, explain these, from an aesthetic viewpoint, what is it? But again, no structural concern, and we rely on our designers and our architects and our engineers to tell us that. And then, of course, we've had Cardinal come back out and look at it. They looked at it, and they've actually tested the floor flatness again and tested several different areas again, and they don't find any concern for it either, other than an aesthetic value. So.
Now, who's going to absorb the cost?
Well, this goes back to some discussion between closing and all the other different things. So the money that's being spent at the end of the project, again, this finish is their finish. So the money that's being spent at the end of the project now, while they are city funds, go against or go to the loan value that is being, the $1.3 million loan that was approved. I don't know where that landed today with your discussions. It seems to me that would be outside of that. The city is not intending to spend any money. The project team's not recommending the city spends any money.
And there is no way for us to procure anything after tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Right. So if it wasn't done by tomorrow at 1 o'clock, which it's not going to be, then it will fall in Hollywood's court to repair that and put their tile or carpet in or whatever.
And how that works with it, let me just explain that while you're on that subject, how that works with the remaining contracts, because the remaining contracts are with Redevelopment Commission for these outstanding amounts. We can proceed and pay out those contracts. And according to the First Amendment to the project agreement, any funds left over from either the loan or the development funds are to be paid down. The loan is to be paid down. And I let Hollywood know that today, let them know that that's the only way we can do it. That's what the parties agreed to do. So, yeah, after tomorrow, there is nothing else that we can procure as a city, but the contracts that we have in place at this point, we can pay out, so.
So to answer your question, Your Honor, the city is not intending to fix this, as this was their issue. They chose to finish it this way, and it'll be their fix to fix it. We've suggested carpet, just because of the speed and the ease of it and the noise and just kind of warming up that space a little bit. I think they're leaning towards the tile, but who knows when the costs come in, what they decide to do there.
Thank you.
I got one more comment. And this is to Mario. So you did discuss it with the restaurant and the hotel, and they're not gonna stay with the concrete, they are gonna cover it, because at first they wanted you to repair,
First, they were trying to
patch.
We recommended not to do the patch, as you saw what it looked like. Talked to Ken, this was last week, and he was in favor of recovering. Now, again, that's at this level, so it has to go on up the chain to find out what they'd like to do, since it's gonna be their money.
So but we're looking at covering it with tile instead of leaving it concrete, or that decision's just not finalized yet?
It's final what the treatment's gonna be. Again, our recommendation was carpet, for the simple fact, I think the wear value, keep from.
But they still could want you to patch?
It would be on them, and I don't think they really want to go with the patch at this time.
Okay,
I think,
thank you.
Jane, I mean, you're concerned as far as the aesthetics, as far as, sense of pride in that project.
I think that's what it, I just couldn't believe it. But they'll end up going with tile or carpet.
One of the two. Carpet squares would probably be the most economic way and the quickest to keep from losing any type of business.
More easily replaceable too.
Oh, the maintenance would be.
Thank you.
Any other comment?
Just a quick one, Mario.
Come to the podium.
The deflection issue that you two guys talked about, has that ran its course? Or will the deflection continue? It's my only question. So the repairs that'll go to it now are the answer?
Right.
All right, that's all I wanted.
Besides Lawrenceburg Conservancy District, more than the aesthetics, I think you need to remember that that shelf anchors our flood wall. And we, the LCD, hired Strand Engineering. You reimbursed us for that, all but $5,000. But you reimbursed us. We paid about $250,000 for that service. And Strand met with Dave and Rob and Tim and Paul and I on several occasions, and they found a few issues that were corrected or dealt with. They were called in to look at this issue also by me, and they have no problem with what they saw. They were the eyes and the ears of the Army Corps and the LCD, and they aren't concerned about the integrity of the structure. Aesthetics don't mean anything to them, but the integrity does. I just want to make that point.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Motion to adjourn.
So moved. I make the motion.
We have a first, do we have a second? First and a second, all in favor? Any opposed?
Looks like you'll make it. Missed a little bit of it, but.
Go out here and find out.
Nice jacket.
Because everybody coming in.
Guess what I found out?
I'm sitting there and I can see, you see them sit down, and the first thing they start discussing is all these cracks.
Election.
Them's just, I counted them, I watched them. They were like 13 or 14 in that little restaurant there.
I find that to be.
If he had how they transfer it to the flat. Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, I mean, that was saying, because I mean, there's a lot of times it's not stars.
The number we buy, suppose like that.
After you take out what's already done.
These are, it was like 15. Oh,
Hey, I need to go to Mr. Sykes.
Faux flooring.
I know when I was eating there, I watched the people as they come in and